Today I'm going to talk to you about a woman that was not mentioned in the Bible by name, but in her Gospels she lets you know what her name was. And her name was Photina, Photina, the woman at the well. Welcome to the women in the Bible. And today we will be talking about the Samaritan woman that Jesus met at the well, Jacob's well. Now, if you would go to St. John chapter 4, verses 1 through approximately 24 are pertaining to this woman in the Bible. And we pretty much have been drilled in what we should have known about the woman in the Bible. But there are some different things that we need to know about, and that's her writings, because she wrote as well. Now, many times when I say that the person wrote it and it's in first person, it doesn't mean that they actually wrote themselves. Sometimes they had individuals write for them. I'm not certain in some of the cases, but I am more interested in what the individual had to say, that's not only in relationship to the Bible and to the things that we did not know. And in covering Photina, you're going to see that there were a number of things that were not covered. Now, for those of you that didn't even know about the woman at the well, or what occurred at that well, you go to St. John chapter 4, and start with verse 1. And it goes through 24, as I said before. Now, I'm not going to read any of that. I'm going to read what she said. And if it's necessary for me to document it, I will go back to the Bible. But in this instance, I'm going to be dealing with the translation of her gospel. Now, I have already read to you the beginning of the gospel and how she knew that she was pretty, and she tried to enhance her beauty, as well as those around her knew of her beauty. Women were jealous, men were jealous that she did not pay any attention to. That's a common factor even today. I'm a living witness to that one. But anyway, as a teenager, she would boast to herself about how she can walk into any room and whichever man that she chose would be hers if this is the way she wanted it to be. That sounds familiar to many of you, okay, including myself. But anyway, she realized that she was going to do more than what she was doing, but she did not understand it. Okay? Now, what I want to do is I'm going to talk about a few things before I go to the guts of things. Remember, her name is Photina, and it's the Latinization of the Greek form of photine, which is an adjective meaning radiant or shining. Now, she believed in dressing well, being beautiful. So therefore she attracted individuals. It appears that she has made some very poor choices of husbands, because even Jesus brought that up at the well. She had 5 husbands and was shacking with somebody. And yes, she had a poor taste in men, which is not uncommon. It happens today. One of the things I want you to remember is whatever happened back in the Bible, it's happening today. Somebody's doing it. But I want to get into a little bit more in her, because she was not given the right. They didn't talk about her right, just like they did with Mary Magdalene. She wasn't a prostitute, but men chose to say certain things. And then what I will say is, if you associate and be around certain things, people have a tendency to want to place you in that same category when you're not even associated with those individuals at that level. And we do that now, okay? But in her case, she had 5 husbands. And she had a rough life. So let me read some stuff getting to her first husband. I am proud to be a Samaritan, just as I am proud to be a woman. I am not going to think less of myself because those on the other side think they are better than me. If they look down on me, that is their problem. I am not offered the same rights as others. I am not going to cringe and beg or sit in a corner being humble or humble. I shall make space for myself. If you know anything about me, you probably know me as the woman who had 5 husbands. I am sorry this should be considered the most interesting thing about me, but since that is what everyone wants to know about, I had better clear it out of the way before we can move on to more substantial topics. Now remember, I'm reading from the 6 Gospels. There's 6 women that wrote that we didn't know about, and they weren't translated into the mid 1970s somewhere. Okay. Now, let's get to her first husband. My first man was one of the group that I grew up with in my village. This was before I came to Sychar or Shechem from Old Testament. I just decided who was the best of the bunch, and I won him. It had not yet occurred to me to look beyond my immediate contemporaries, and I was well satisfied at the time. He was dark and straight-featured, athletic, and even something of a daredevil. I was the first of my friends to be married, and it felt wonderfully exciting and grown up. Sex was a thrilling discovery to be explored night by night. Marriage was great for the first few months. After that, sex became a routine, and I began to feel dreadfully hemmed in. He had no aspirations beyond the village and no ideas. I began to realize my intelligence went far beyond his, and I was bored out of my wits. I was growing in my mind and in my heart, and I left him far behind like a childish plaything. I had made a bad mistake in marrying him. But I was so young and knew so little. I'm going to take a break, and then we'll be back with the second husband.